This video is by Straight Goods News, SGNews.ca.
Resuming this morning, Mr. Blaney and I are here to outline our government's priorities. The Harper's Department's top priority is economic growth, job creation, and long-term prosperity. Our economic action plan has made Canada a leader in an otherwise troubled global economy. Canada has the lowest debt burden by far, and we have the strongest job creation record among the major developed economies, the G7 countries, with over 920,000 net new jobs created since the economic downturn. We have attained this position in part through the productive work of Parliament. The stability and certainty of our political system is foundational to our strong economic recovery. This is especially so when you compare it with the political gridlock that we see in Europe, as well as with our neighbors to the south. If the American Senate passes a budget in 2013, it will be the first time they have done so since early 2009, over 4 years since the American Senate has adopted a budget. In Canada, we've approached things differently. We have a productive, orderly, and hardworking Parliament. In this Parliament, over 3/4 of the government's bills have passed through at least one of the two chambers, with the majority of these bills having already received royal assent. This includes major government initiatives like budget implementation legislation, which featured a small business hiring credit and, of course, cutting the deficit in more than half. We've also instituted a major tackling crime bill, a bill providing marketing choice for Western Green farmers, and delivered on other fundamental and important commitments. Our government will continue to build on our strong record of accomplishment, and we expect the House of Commons will continue to operate in a productive, hardworking, and orderly fashion. Consistent with our focus on the economy, the cornerstone of our agenda in Parliament will be the budget. Over the last 2 months, Conservative members of Parliament have held over 200 pre-budget consultations with hardworking Canadians across the country. Prior to the introduction of the budget, we will make progress on other important economic bills, including the Fair Rail Freight Service Act, which will support economic growth by ensuring that all shippers, including farmers, are treated fairly. The Northern Jobs and Growth Act, legislation that will help ensure the North realizes its true potential as an economically prosperous region. The Technical Tax Amendments Act, which we will begin debating later today. This bill will provide certainty to Canadian taxpayers, and we would like to see it move swiftly to committee this week. In addition to economic items, our government will be moving forward with legislation that will keep our streets and communities safe and support victims of crime. In the coming weeks, we will look to pass through the House the Faster Removal of Foreign Criminals Act. This bill is supported by Chiefs of Police, the Canadian Police Association, and victims' advocates, because it will stop foreign criminals from committing more crimes while they seek to delay their removal from Canada. We will also pass through the House the Enhancing Royal Canadian Mounted Police Accountability Act, another piece of legislation that has been long called for because it will give the RCMP the tools it needs to strengthen the accountability and enhance public trust. As part of our efforts to keep our communities safe, we will introduce legislation to ensure that public safety should be the paramount consideration in the decision-making process involving high-risk accused found not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. This is something we committed to doing, and we will follow through on that commitment. As I said, our government's top priority remains the economy. In the face of continued global economic uncertainty, it is important that we continue to focus on the economy and to build on the best job creation record of the major developed economies. This is what Canadians have come to expect from our government, and we will continue that as we move forward in the House of Commons in a productive, orderly, and hardworking fashion.
I'm thinking of C30 or C31. I think it's C30, the WikiLeaks bill. It was supposed to be sent to a legislative committee. That was a year ago. What's happening with that?
We don't foresee that being debated in the next couple of weeks. It's important in that legislation to make sure that we strike the right balance between the legitimate interests of the police and being able to deal with changing technology and doing their work, but at the same time respecting Canadians' privacy. We want to make sure we get that balance right.
Aboriginal affairs is likely to be an economic issue, and are you prepared to do something to resolve some of these outstanding issues in Aboriginal affairs, given that it's such an important economic issue to develop our natural resources with the cooperation of First Nations persons?
Well, there was a very productive meeting between the Prime Minister and the Grand Chief and some other chiefs on January 11th. That said, we'll train two processes, one to deal with the treaty relationship, another to deal with comprehensive claims. We're optimistic that that process will be a productive one. It has been off to a good start, and we're looking forward to seeing results there. You're quite right about the importance of resource development in creating economic prosperity for not just all Canadians, but in particular Aboriginal Canadians, because of where those resources that we're hoping to see developed are located. The opportunities for First Nations economic activity, whether it be through employment or through Aboriginal businesses that can benefit from economic activity and resource extraction, is great. And that's one of the reasons why in our budget last year we made important changes to focus on resource development to allow that potential to be harnessed for Canadians. Among the greatest beneficiaries of those changes will be First Nations.
Mr. Van Loan, what will you be, what's your position on the fact that you will have a protest outside Parliament here today at Idle No More? One of the key things they want is changes to budget bills that your government brought in, C-38 and C-45, that they say erode certain rights, including the environment. So what's your position on that? Will you be making any changes to C-38 or C-45?
No, those are very important economic legislative initiatives. In fact, you just heard me speak about how the changes brought in there among the greatest beneficiaries will actually be First Nations who stand to enjoy the economic prosperity that will flow from some of those changes, particularly in the resource development area. So we are firmly committed to the changes we've made. It's part of ensuring Canada's long-term economic prosperity and harnessing the unique advantages we have. As a country, we have potential and advantages that no other developed country has. And if we want to avoid some of the risks and backsliding we see economically elsewhere, we want to prosper into the future. Those changes that we've put in place are critical for Canada's long-term job growth and prosperity.
What is it you have not explained to these folks that will be protesting? If you have changes in your budget that's going to create jobs for them, what are those changes?
Well, when we put in place changes to allow for resource development to proceed in a fashion that isn't subject to excessive red tape, that we're looking to take advantage of those things, those will directly result in jobs and economic growth. That's obviously what we're hoping to do. Another piece of legislation that aims to provide similar benefits is one that we hope to see dealt with that you heard me speak about earlier, and that's the Northern Jobs and Growth Act. Again, this is one where by delivering prosperity in the north of Canada, among the principal beneficiaries will be Canada's First Nations. That's why we do want to see that bill become law relatively soon.
So where? Where? Are you talking about pipelines, mines, where?
All of these things are aspects, all the resources that Canada has. As I said, Canada is a country that has potential, boundless potential, unlike the countries of Europe, for example, that are faced by more troubling economic times. But in order to have the economic benefits, we need to be able to harness those resources. These are why the changes we brought in last year were brought in to create that economic advantage for Canada, to create those jobs and prosperity for Canada. These are not instant things that are going to happen. These are long-term processes that will occur, and that's why we talk about long-term prosperity. We're talking about creating jobs, not this year, not next year, but actually for decades to come. And that's the kind of change, I think, that most First Nations are looking for in their own communities. It's certainly what I know most Canadians want to see, that our economic prosperity is assured, not just for a year or two, but for the long term.